Hello, welcome to the next edition of the Andy Rogers podcast. Tonight I've got Ross Coutts. How you doing, mate?
Not bad, mate. How you getting on?
Aye, alright. Taking away. Started this because I've always wanted to do one, so just trying to get through guests and see where it goes.
What better time when we're in lockdown? It's certainly it's a good hobby to pick up.
I think everyone else has started one. I listened to your What's the Crack one as well back in, what was it, April, May?
Oh yeah, of course, aye.
Liam. So I listened to it earlier because I was like, right, I've got to try and do basically a copy of that.
Yeah, no, Liam's podcast's brilliant. I think
I love it, man. It's class.
the fact he's focusing solely on the West Lothian music scene. There wasn't anything there already that was focusing on the music scene podcast wise. So yeah, I think that kind of filled a sort of gap in the local scene, and it's been really good. It's been a good listen.
So, like most folk will know your music daft. What was your first gig?
My first gig, believe it or not, was the Pet Shop Boys at the Clyde Auditorium, which was amazing. Yeah, my dad took me. I was brought up listening to Run Rig and the Pet Shop Boys, a complete variation of two different acts who my dad was into. So I loved both bands, and when I was probably 9 or 10, the Pet Shop Boys were doing a seated gig at the Clyde Auditorium, and because it was seated, it was an all ages show. So got me tickets for that. Went along. Can't remember a huge amount apart from I got to sit on the stage at one point. I must have been the youngest person there by about 50 years. So that was cool, and got to meet the band and stuff after the gig as well. So I've seen a picture with Neil Tennant somewhere, which is cool. But yeah, no, that was a great show.
They're legends, man. Absolute legends.
Yeah, definitely defined generations of that kind of electro pop music as well. Had tickets for them actually. Had tickets for the Greatest Hits tour, which was due to happen last year, get moved to this year, and it's just the other day been moved to 2022. So fingers crossed it'll happen eventually.
Oh no, it's been, see the amount of rescheduled gigs. You'll know yourself. It's been absolutely murder. I mean, I might go see the Who in 6 weeks at the Hydro song, and it's still not been rescheduled.
I think it's annoying. So some bands kind of do it differently than others. Some bands will, like the Pet Shop Boys, for instance, just reschedule it in advance, and I kind of prefer that because you know that you're looking at May next year, and you know what day you need to keep available to go to that. And a lot of the other bands, in fact, most of them are quite good. The one that's sticking out is Ocean Colour Scene that was meant to happen, and I had tickets to see them at the Barrowlands in December there, and it's still not been rescheduled yet. Like that was meant to be December. They've still not confirmed a new date for it.
What was it? 4 nights? Is it 4 nights?
Yeah, 4 nights at the Barretts. I think we were going on the Friday night, and they've still not announced it. It's been, I think there's been a wee sort of footnote somewhere saying, "Oh, it's been rescheduled, but we'll get back to you with a date." I'm like, well, it's meant to be 3 months ago, and we don't know when it's going to be yet. Even if they put a date in the diary, fair enough. COVID is ever changing. The uncertainty's there, and gigs have changed 3 and 4 times now, and that's to be expected. But I would prefer if they at least put a date in the diary. It's something to kind of look forward to, and then if it needs to change, it needs to change. But yeah, it is frustrating, just the constant circle of rearrange gigs, and it's just one of these things, I guess, with the pandemic that nobody really knows how to what's next, essentially.
100%. Sort of going on like first gigs, what's sort of your best memories of like gigs? Because you put that top 10 list together last week.
Yeah, I was bored at the weekend. Usually I go out walking at the weekends, but I've been having a few issues with the roof in the new house. There's been some condensation in the loft, and it's been leaking. It's obviously not the most interesting story ever, but I had roofers out on Sunday fixing that. So I'm not really one for telly or anything. I watch the odd maybe one episode a night or something, but it's not really a big hobby. So I was bored on Sunday, and I thought, right, I'm really missing gigs. While the roofers are up there banging away, I'm going to kind of compile my top 10 list of gigs I've been to and just do a wee blog on it. So it was quite cool. It was a chance to kind of reminisce on like gigs that I'd been to both in like years gone by, like sort of 10, 15 years ago, but also some of the more recent gigs like Jerry Cinnamon at the Hydro, for instance, which was just incredible. I was not expecting going to that show that it would be one of the best gigs I'd ever been to. That was incredible. The West Lothian, the All-Star West Lothian lineup at the Edinburgh Castle at Summer Sessions a few years ago, that was a particular highlight. It was just incredible standing back and just watching the four of them absolutely smash it in Princess Street Gardens, having seen each of the four acts play, and Harley's play in the attic, play in front of no more than 2 or 3 people some nights. So it's great to see things taking off, all on different levels right enough, but taking off for all 4 of the bands.
Yeah, they're all just sitting ready to just take over from, because that day that Lewis had the Snuts and Sharpie and Luke on, I work in Longstone, so I was getting the bus into town, and they were all sort of doing their sort of sound checks. I was like, what's going on? Because my head was just full of work, and I thought, oh wait, Lewis is playing stuff. Like, dived over and like jumped onto the gardens. I was just like, cool. But no, I was like, when I seen the lineup, I was like, that's something I've seen put together in sort of like Bathgate and, through Everby, put on by yourself.
Soundcheck was a bit of a weird one there because you're soundchecking in a very public area. So I think Lewis actually had to soundcheck his vocals from like backstage because everyone was just piling into the gardens to try and get a glimpse of him during soundcheck. But yeah, it's a great venue. Like that venue's incredible. The sound in there is really good as well. I find the sound's not super loud because I think they're on like they've got sort of strict noise levels in there. But it is incredible. It's a great venue.
Yeah, like I think Sharpie was his sound check was that song from Trainspotting.
Oh, of course, yeah, Born Slippy, a regular in the set, always goes down.
And I've seen him doing it acoustically just like a year ago. Remember that charity gig a year ago, and I've seen him doing it acoustic. I was like, wow, like that's unreal.
Yeah, it's really good. I think he's taken it both acoustically and also as part of the band. They've kind of made it their own, so it's not just a carbon copy. Sometimes you'll get an act that'll cover a song up with a carbon copy of the original, but it's good to take the song, and what they've done is just kind of made it their own, and it always goes down well, especially at support shows like that one you're talking about with Lewis. If you're standing behind the band, if I'm standing at the side of the stage or whatever, and they'll be playing through their kind of back catalogue, so to speak, and you'll see 1 or 2 phones out and people filming them and tagging us on Instagram and the like. But then as soon as they start playing that, every phone just like lights up because it's a song that they know and they get right into it. But that's certainly a big song in the set list.
We actually share one of our favourite top 10 gigs, the Arctic Monkeys.
At the Barras, that was incredible.
I liked them for like way back at the start, and like that gig was just mind blowing. It was my first time at the Barras as well, so it was like whoa. Like, it was like
mayhem, and it was obviously the days before. I'm guessing you'd be the same at a sober gig because I think I was 16 or 17 at the time. So it was to the tuck shop to get an Iron Brew because I definitely did not look even nearly 18, and I think if I'd have got somebody else to buy me a pint, I would have had it taken off me straight away. So I was on the Iron Brew, so it was a sober gig, and I don't think I'd have the momentum to keep up with that carnage at a gig anymore. It was just from their first track, which I think might have been Brian Storm, I can't remember, straight through until the end of the set. It was just like carnage. It was good. It was amazing.
It was just before Favourite Worst Nightmare came out, and it
was like the week before or 2 weeks before, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was amazing. Like,
I was like, that's mental. Like, people I talk to now, like, oh, were you at that gig? Were you at that gig? And there's just like so many people. They all just cross over. Going to the same gigs. And I've seen them like
definitely, especially places like the Barras that are kind of instrumental in the scene. But gigs like that were iconic, and like Cortina's gigs at the Barrowlands were always good as well.
I missed them at the Barras. I miss the Cortinas at the Barras, but I seen the view at the Barras, and that's just incredible.
Carnage as well. That's another band that played it.
I
don't think we've been to a bad gig at the Barrowlands, actually.
Stiff little fingers from me 2 years ago.
All right, yeah.
Oh, it was awful. Wasn't so much the band. This guy just wouldn't leave me alone, and I was like, if I didn't leave, I'm going to get chucked out for knocking him out.
Oh, it can be annoying, I guess, with the crowds that you get at some of the shows. I hate when you get somebody, and you always get somebody beside you that just insists on talking over the tracks. It's like, fucking hell, like, get the wee wifeys in front of you. I can't remember what show I was at. I think it was like some of Lewis's gigs can be really bad for them because he's now got that. I don't want to say one hit wonder because his tunes are all massive, but because he's got that tune Someone You Loved, you do get a proportion of the crowd that go along just for Someone You Loved and or one or two other tracks. So I think it was at the Academy, and it was a couple of wifeys in front of me, and they were just like, oh, I gave John this for his tea tonight, and I'm like, I'm watching a fucking gig here. Can you just shut up for like half an hour or however long we've got left until the end of the gig? But that's probably my sort of pet hate from gigs. You get some people that film or have their phone out quite a lot. The people don't like. To be honest, that doesn't really bother me. If you're having a good time, fair enough. But see if you're chatting over it, honestly, just go away. Like don't come to the show.
Yeah, like I was at a gig in Perth at the Flat Arms, right, and I bumped into somebody in a video on that Oasis tribute. You got to play Bathgate, Stop the Clocks, and they were doing.
All right, yeah.
And all you can hear in the video is me talking to somebody. I'm like, just ruin the video, man.
Yeah, it's just typical. It's manic.
So, moving on, Ross. What was your favourite band growing up?
Favourite band growing up? Again, probably until I got to about 14, 15, it was like music that I'd kind of grown up listening to. So Run Rig, Pet Shop Boys, and then I was getting into some more of the kind of your more generic indie rock stuff as well, like your sort of Cooks, your Snow Patrols, your Killers, bands that had been going for a little bit longer. But it was when like Arctic Monkeys first kind of released that debut album, when The View were coming out with their early demos, like Wasted Little DJs and Superstar Tradesmen and stuff like that. And also like the Libertines. So they were like the three sort of like indie bands that were like instrumental in a great proportion of what my music kind of taste is today. And then just started going to gigs from like 16, 17, and then just got into the new music and the guitar-based kind of bands like from that.
Yeah, because like I've been on Facebook for as long as I have. Every week I was like, I'm a couple of years younger than you, so I couldn't go to gigs myself. Really.
Of course, yeah.
Like my dad would have to go to me. Like my dad's been to see like the Arctic Monkeys and all that, and he's been to see like bands with me. Like took me to see Oasis and that, and I'm like seeing you going to gigs with like Raynor and all that, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait till that's me. Like out with the boys and being old enough to like go into the pubs and all that, like the trail down to the bars and that with the pubs.
Those were like the kind of peak years for gigs as well, because when you look back on the bands that kind of emerged from like 2007 to like 2010, as well as the bands that did get big, there's so many bands just under the radar, that bands like Little Man Tate, the Holloways, and then closer to Scotland, like you've got obviously the Applescrofts, Dead Sea Souls, you had the band from Glasgow like Parka, High Five Alive, the Ray Summers, loads of like really talented bands, and they just never quite broke through. And sometimes you wonder, is it just because the strength was so vast in the music scene at the time that it was so difficult for like all these bands to break into the kind of mainstream? So.
Yeah, it was a bit like, I thought it was like, looking back on it now, it's a bit like the 90s when it was like Oasis, Blur and Verve.
Yeah.
The other bands, it's not that they didn't make it, they just didn't quite break through. Sort of compare it to that.
Yeah, they just kind of never got that final sort of break. The Applescrofts are one that, well, the Applescrofts and Dead Sea Souls were both, they were sort of two of the sort of biggest unsigned bands of that sort of era. Neither of them played Tea in the Park, which was quite strange. Neither of them getting neither of them get invited to do tea break at any stage, despite the fact that over that sort of 4 or 5 year period, they were probably two of the biggest acts. But again, they weren't doing a massive amount of shows for DF. I don't think Apple's Crust were doing many at all. They had their own kind of Neverland club night. DSS were doing the odd show at Tuts, but yeah, I guess it just depends on context in the industry and stuff as well. But I look back and I can't believe how that neither the Scruffs or DSS ended up playing tea break or futures or anything at Tea in the Park.
Yeah, 100%. I thought, not even looking back, I thought, they would have played it, before Maddie went to Tea in the Park. Definitely, because you look at the bands.
Unfortunately, not.
Going on to you starting doing, doing gigs, Ross. Your first one was a charity gig for college.
Yeah, it sort of happened by accident, to be honest. I'd never really thought about putting on gigs before, or even shown a particular interest in putting them on. I was doing radio at college, at Edinburgh Telford College, and I think that the tutor kind of pulled us in one day. He's right, you have to get together and plan an event, like a Christmas party. And I was like, this is really exciting. I've never planned an event before. And I pitched the idea of a live gig or a concert. Instantly get shot down by like everybody apart from one guy and my mate in the class. I was like, nah, we're not doing that. Like, we're going to do like a party. We'll get a DJ in and stuff. That's fucking shite. So I was like, I'll just put on my own gig then. So me and my mate Chris, we ended up just going straight from that meeting up to the liquid rooms, and we're like, right, what available dates do you have? Can we hire it? We're going to do a gig. And I don't think they took us seriously, but we kind of totally winged it because I had no events experience. But we got there. My favourite one was when we almost booked like headline wise, we were looking at like a couple of, I should say bigger bands, but like sort of breaking bands in Scotland. And we'd had an offer in with somebody, and their agent got back in touch and says, yeah, so-and-so like £250 plus rider or whatever it was. And I replied and says, yeah, that sounds great, £250. What's a rider? Is that somebody to drive them about? So he replied back and says, oh, right, well, let's just get back to you. And I never heard from him again. So he obviously thought, no, we're not doing a gig for this guy here. But yeah, we learned a lot by putting on that show. It was a good experience. We raised a fair bit of money for Sans Lothian, and yeah, we had a good night. But it was certainly a learning experience.
Do you get the bug for it after that? Just
Oh, definitely, yeah. Do you know, even before that night had happened, like probably 2 or 3 weeks before the show had happened, and we were still promoting it, and we weren't actually sure how it would go. Sales were looking okay. We got a lot of walk-ups. It was a Monday night as well. I mean, why did I book a show for a Monday night? I don't know. But it was a difficult sale. A Monday night in Edinburgh in the middle of April or something. It wasn't even pay week. It was, I don't know why, but we managed to get there. But yeah, as the show was coming up, I looked at other venues in Edinburgh, smaller venues. I thought, let's go down a wee bit, because Liquid Rooms is a hard sale. It's 800 cap. So we put a few gigs on at the Wee Red Bar, and an old venue actually, which was right at the tail end of Princess Street, called the Ark. I don't know if you remember it. It's a Chinese restaurant. It was one of the. I've never had such a fantastic view from any sort of venue I've ever put a show in, any indoor venue I've ever put a show in. So it's just a small room. It's like maybe 200 cap, and the panoramic windows at the far side of the room that look right across Princess Street and up to Edinburgh Castle. And we had like Root System headlining this show, which was just like proper like ska music, which was bizarre, but it was a great venue. So that was the gig 2. Was that one with Root System and Jackal, the Edinburgh band. I don't know if they're still going. That was good.
I know who they are. I've listened to bits and pieces. Just a bit before my time for all that sort of music.
Yeah.
And obviously you start doing like the gigs in Bathgate and that, at Harley's and Attic and that. What's your top gigs for all that? Because I know a lot of it can just go into one sort of gig.
They do. Honestly, I swear, like between 2009 and 2011, every night probably just merges together. So in terms of the Bathgate shows, they actually kind of started accidentally as well. We were putting on a lot of Edinburgh shows at the time, and Lavie and Blair were putting on some Bathgate gigs, not regular, but maybe once every couple of months. They were having the Apple Scruffs or DSS or the Ray Summers or Tango in the Attic. And it was actually my mate, Ewan Gray. He said to me, "Oh, should we put on a show in Bathgate?" And there was a band from Glasgow that he was really into at the time. That I was into them as well. Pop Up, who just got back together last year actually. The cracking album. So we're like, yeah, right, okay, let's hire Harleys. We'll put on a show in Harleys, and we'll not book the same bands that Lavie and Blair would book, because that's kind of that scene. They've got that covered. But we'll go. So we had Fred Astaire's books like Tam Fraser and Tam and Sked. Their band played their first gig at Harleys as part of that.
What was before Volker?
Fred, well, they were called Penfold, but this was right back in the day. They were called Fred Astaire's Boots. They were a kind of indie band. So they played the debuts played, who were a cracking sort of Edinburgh electro band, and I can't remember who else. We had a couple of acoustics as well. So yeah, we did that, and then from that we just ended up putting on more regular Bathgate shows. Tied in with Wardy as well, who was putting on his own shows at the time, and the two of us ended up just putting on combined shows. In terms of Bathgate shows, like the view at the Rat was incredible. Like that was just absolutely him. They did it twice. So they did it in November 2010, and then they did it in like between Christmas and New Year. I think it was 2011 or 2012. But it was just absolute carnage. There's still a video on YouTube of that, and it's just like body after body just like firing out the crowd because we're crowd surfing. It's just that was amazing. That was a great gig. And the Attic Fest shows at Rat were really good as well.
Yeah.
And Harleys, like, it was great. Like, when you look at some of the bands that played Harleys, a lot of them didn't really go into massive things, but they should have. Some of the ones that did, where we had Phil Campbell from the Temperance Movement, pre-Temperance Movement. He was in with his kind of acoustic project, which was amazing. We had Admiral Fallow played it. We had we actually booked them. They were the Brother Louis Collective at the time, and they rebranded actually just before the show went on sale. So we had them as Admiral Fallow, and it was pretty quiet. It was them, Lee Minnis, and I think Yusuke played as well. So that was amazing. And Father Son as well played it under the previous guise of Energy. But again, that was a Sunday night, and there was about 10 people there. But there's so many class shows from over the years, and I'm sure if you ask anyone that's gone to Harleys or Rat or at the Attic back in the sort of peak of the West Lothian scene, they'll probably all have a different answer in terms of what their favourite show is, because they all sort of blended into one. But there were sort of key memories from the individual nights, and sort of like just Joe Cornell as well from Melbourne. He came and played the Attic. That was another one that kind of stands out. What about yourself? What's your sort of Bathgate show highlights?
It's sort of just before I started not proper knowing about the West Lothian scene. But I love DSS. I got to the last show, and I remember just going home, just heartbroken that was going to be it. Absolutely gutted that. I mean, it was amazing. The shows like the Begbies were on. Lewis was on that night, wasn't he? Right, Lewis Begbies.
No, I'm trying to think. He wasn't. I think he was there, but I can't remember
I know DSS. I know the Begbies played.
It was Begbies. I think maybe Yusuke. I think you Butler played, and Gary Evans. Well, Gary Evans would have played with the Begbies, didn't he? I can't remember if we had a December 2013, wasn't it? And at Chalmers. That was a great show. Can't believe that's the last time the TSS played in Bathgate. We were hoping to have done the reunion show by now, but aside from the 2 nights at Tuts, we've been unable to do any more due to this virus. But I dare say it won't be too long before the guys are back playing in Bathgate.
Yeah, they've rescheduled the Dreadnought show for August or September, haven't they?
Yeah, 14th of August it is now. So we're talking about rescheduling shows. Like, it's the third reschedule. It was meant to take place initially in May last year, and then we moved it to later on in the year. I think it was September, and then we've moved it to March, and then so this is the 4-3 schedule actually.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed for August. If it can't happen in August, then again we'll just need to put another date in the diary and see what that will take place. But I'm sure that'll be it. But when the show does finally happen, I think it'll be special.
I think there'll be much of the Dreadnought left after that, to be honest.
It's a very small venue for it. Yeah, I mean, we were kind of toying over a venue. Chalmers doesn't do any gigs now, and they're very focused on the cinema that they're hesitant to hire the venue out for anything else. Yeah. So we were kind of torn between the Dreadnought, where you've got all your equipment and stuff there. It's a renowned venue. We've got the Regal that we used before for Luke's show, which the Regal can be really special if you pull it off right. You need to spend a good amount of money on production because it's an empty venue that you have. It's basically a shell of a venue. And I think the thing with the Regal is, so I mean, we did it for Luke and it was amazing. It's one of the favourite shows that I've put on locally because we had proper like full lighting rig in, full production. Like we loaded in at 10 a.m. for like a 7 p.m. doors, which is unheard of for a local show. But we made the most of it, and like that was amazing. But we looked at it. There's a few kind of discrepancies about the capacity of the Regal. So we just ended up going to the Dreadnought, and it's a great venue. Like it's a great venue when it finally happens. I'm sure it's going to be big, but hopefully it won't be too long because we couldn't socially distance a show like that. I don't think.
No, I mean. I think when I seen you're leaving like in the attic, and the attic was packed. I had Callum on my shoulders.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a fun night. That was mayhem as well. Another one of the many great basket nights.
It was like the first night I met Callum, and it just went nuts.
Was that the first time you met him as well?
It was the first night I met him.
I didn't know that. I thought you'd been through the house game.
No, and Paul was like, "You're gonna love him, by the way. He's an absolute nutter." Like,
yeah,
you're definitely. Gonna get on with him so good. And he'd done his knee in, and then we went flying. Like he was on my shoulders, and me and Callum try and put each other on each other's shoulders isn't a good idea because we're both similar built in that. At the time, and
I think I've got a very great recollection of that. Callum's brilliant in a night out. I remember one night at the attic, I was serving behind the bar, so we were a little bit short staffed, and I was there anyway because I was running the gig. So I ended up jumping on the bar, and I could tell he was getting worse for wear as the night went on. And he's like, "Right, just give me a pint of anything." And I was like, "What do you want? Like beer? Do you want a lager? Do you want cider?" He's like, "No, just everything. Just mix it all together." And I'm not even sure if that's like my bar training was very limited at the time, but there was a rather interesting mixture of alcohol in a pint glass. And to credit him, he absolutely downed it. But it wasn't in the best of ways afterwards. But it was brilliant.
No, absolutely hero. Moving on a wee bit now after your leaving night and that. I think I recall seeing like on Facebook you got like a link with Big Jerry Cinnamon. Were you on the side of the stage at him at Tea in the Park on? When he's Tea in the Park.
Oh, was that I was on his it was really nice. He put me on his guest list for Tea in the Park. It was just after Gig in the Goyle actually, because he was playing Gig in the Goyle and I was still undecided if I was going to go to Tea in the Park that year. He's like, I'll put you on my guest list. So no, it was good. Got to go up and see him smashing the. See, all the stages changed. I think it was the King Tut stage. It was the indoor. It was the indoor stage, but I can't remember if it was King Tut's that year or if it was something else. I was gutted because I missed him previously. The year before that, I was over in America, so I missed Tea in the Park the year before, which would have been 2015, I think. So yeah, it was amazing getting to see him at
just before it all. Like,
pretty much. He brought out Hope Over Fear in 2014, and that kind of that gave him a bit of a rise, and he pulled in a new following that he didn't previously have. But then it was really the release of his debut album and songs like Belter and Diamonds in the Mud and stuff like that, which spiraled his rise to fame.
Yeah, how was it like getting like the likes of him, picking him for a gig in the Goyle? How did that all go? Just getting him up there, because it's beautiful up there.
Oh, amazing! Yeah. So, well, year one of gigging the Goyle. So we're like toying over how we were going to do it. And initially it was going to be like an outdoor festival. We had looked at doing it as an outdoor festival, and we'd looked at certain acts to bring in, but we didn't really have a big budget at all. It was really a trial event, and I was trying to persuade my management at the work that we need to do a festival here. There's room for a festival in Loch Oilhead. It can be special.
100%.
But it was only a one-day event really that year, and had a very limited budget, so I was kind of looking about, couldn't get any particularly big acts. Jerry at the time had a decent following. I was a big fan of him anyway. I'd gone to quite a few of his shows. Wally was putting them on for years, even before that. So I'd gone to a few of his shows, Wally at the Biscuit Factory and stuff. And theatre he'd done as well. And I was like, let's just get Jerry Cinnamon. He's got that sort of loyal following where we're sort of guaranteed a sort of turn in ticket sales, because we'll have his fans coming up for it. But also in terms of a headliner for your first event, you're wanting that sort of memorable set. You're wanting somebody he's got his own material, but at the time he was doing a lot of folk covers as well. So he would do like Caledonia and stuff like that. And then he did, yeah, he was doing that. I can't remember if he did that the Goyle, but yeah, certainly he was playing a lot of like Stone Roses kind of stuff, and it always went down really well. But no, that was a special set, yeah, selling out that first year, and Jerry like stepping on stage, like just him and the guitar, and the crowd just going nuts for it, as they do at any sort of Jerry Cinnamon gig. Like that was cool.
Yeah, where in the Goyle was that? Because I've been up. Where was the initial just first?
So it's been in the same venue every year. The main stage hasn't actually moved room. It's moved slightly from one side of the room to another, and we've kind of we've changed the layout a bit to allow us a bit more room, and we've expanded it so we've got some outdoor space that looks in like at the back of the room. So it's just the main function room. Do you know, where the entertainment and stuff? Yeah, it doesn't really look like much when you're up there on a holiday or on a standard day. We bring in quite a bit of production for that as well, to actually make it look and feel like a gig venue, because it doesn't really have that as such when you go into it. But so there wasn't much production in the year one, to be honest. I think we just used the B stage that was there. We had the sort of metal barriers. It was the same ones we had for DSS at Chalmers. The metal sort of traffic barriers. Yeah. Aye, and they crush because they're not like the Mojo barriers that you get at proper like festivals and events. But we had a limited budget here, so but then we had to go for proper Mojo barriers the following year, because people were pushing into barriers, and had to stop the set a couple of times just so that people didn't get crushed. So didn't want to be faced with that again. So I think it was actually after Scaryvore in 2017. That was when we started having problems, and I thought, we've got too many people here now for a barrier of such sort of quality. So we just invested in the proper barrier. Anyway, I'm going off topic, but that's why we invested a wee bit more in getting proper crowd barriers in. But yeah, the main thing with gigging the Goyle is just every year just adding like wee bits here and there. We don't want to grow it and become like a huge festival at all. Yeah. So we're sitting at around 1,000 capacity, and that's probably our limit. But what we want to do is add wee bits every year. We added a VIP section a couple of years ago, which went down really well, and we've got approval for like a 2 a.m. license on the Saturday night for for the one it was meant to be this year. So like just to extend it a wee bit more, and it'll give us the opportunity to put on alternative types of entertainment at like DJs. Is what I mean by alternative types of entertainment. At midnight and stuff, and just looking at other, like we've had traders in the past couple of years as well. So just looking at ideas that we can improve the experience of everyone that's coming up, and rather than get kind of stale where we're offering the same sort of experience every year, we're trying to just mix it up a wee bit.
Yeah, because you've had, some brilliant names up there. You've had Sharpie, you've had the Snuts up there, Lewis has played up there. Seems to be like, some of the bands that just seems to be part of the journey. Doing the festival.
Oh, definitely. I think we've been really lucky as well. Like,
passage.
Yeah, we've been really lucky. It's a very diverse festival because we've got, like, the main stage is largely focused on your Scottish trad music, which I absolutely love as well. So that's your Skipness, your Skerrivo, your Trail West, your Tidelines. So bands like that, Manran, who did it a couple of years ago as well, and Heron Valley that have played it quite a lot. So it's largely focused around Scottish traditional music, but I didn't want to do a festival that was just all trad, because I've got obviously such passion for the rising sort of scene, the indie scene, the guitar scene in Scotland and predominantly West Lothian. So we were lucky to get, I think Lewis was booked for the first year but couldn't do it. There was a bit of a double booking there. So he came back and did year 2 and then exploded after that. So we didn't get him again. Jerry did it in year 1, headlined, which was incredible. I think we had the Snuts 2016, I think they did. Sharpie's done it every year. Sharpie is, I think, the only act that's played it every year. Gary Evans has also played it every year, but year 1 was with the Begbies rather than solo. Yeah, but no, we've been lucky. Oh, definitely. Callum Beattie, I think, will be the next one. Like, we're really lucky to get him in as headliner. We're really lucky to get him in for this year. Because he's blown up at the moment. He's in all the radios. He was, I think, A-listed or B-listed in Radio 2. He's been all over like Clyde and Forth. He's getting like national airplay. It's quite a weird one because this album came out during first lockdown. So pre-first lockdown, he wasn't that big. So I think his like current tour that keeps getting rescheduled is only a very small tour. It's like King Tut's level. But he's just like absolutely rocketed during that time. That he's probably Barra's level now, to be honest. So we're really buzzing to have him, and I think he's got the next one that probably explode out of that sort of genre. Yeah,
because weirdly, when I started the job I'm in just now, I actually worked with Stepmom.
All right, okay, not bad. Claim to fame.
And I was like, so, you know who Callum Beattie is? I was like, I think I've seen him on my mate's bills, referring to you. I think you'd maybe put him on, or somebody put him on. And I was like, not got a clue. And he's just absolutely skyrocketed with Salamander Street and that.
Yeah, he's been kind of on the edge of it for years, because he's been kind of tipped in the industry for quite a while. And it wasn't until, I guess, the debut album came out that kind of people sat back and thought, like, that's a really good album. Like, it's one of those albums where you wouldn't really skip any song. So the album really kind of done it for him. I booked him. It's such a long gap between the last time I booked him and this time for Gigging the Oil. The last time they played a gig for me was 2009. We had his band Havana Fair in their Musselburgh based band. I think he must have been from the Musselburgh area. My mate Dave, who put on gigs with in Edinburgh at that time, he was good mates with Callum, and he's like, we need to get my mate in, like Havana Fair, who are a really good band as well, kind of like indie / kind of punk. So he played that at the Sound of Summer Festival in 2009 that put on, and then he also played solo as well. And then he's returning to play a gig for me. What is that? 15 years later or something? 13 years later.
Yeah, I mean, you put Lewis on it. He's around about that time as well, didn't you? That
was the same gig. That was, so that would have been, it was at the GRV, it was called at the time, but it's the Mash House now. So it was like a 3-day event at 2 stages, so a main band stage and then an acoustic wee podium, where where it was an acoustic podium that Lewis and Callum played, and a lot of other top acts from West Lothian and beyond.
Yeah. Going into like working with Lewis and all that, how does all that come about? Because you always seem to have you've always got your finger on the pulse. You've got Connor Fyfin, who I absolutely love. Seeing him the first time out, I think it might have been your birthday, or just before that. You always seem to have your finger on the pulse with acts.
Connor, well, Lewis was an interesting one. The whole Lewis thing came about. His brother Warren, like he was doing like a residency. I had a weekly radio show at the time, like new music. It was called The Gap. It was up at St John's Hospital. And Warren was up like once a month, so he was like almost like a resident performer, so to speak. He'd come up and do some tracks as part of our Wednesday sessions. And then he goes to me one week. He's like, "Oh, my brother started writing his own material and playing guitar. He's only 13, but can he come up the next time?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course, definitely. Like, it'd be good to hear him. We can get a wee bit of an interview on the go, and he can play some of his material." So he brought him up, lo and behold, and it was his confidence actually that I was like, bloody hell, like it's the 13-year-old here, and he's just like ridiculously confident, writing his own material, and the guitar was about twice the size of him, but it was amazing. So it was on the back of that we got him on board for the Sound of Summer Festival, and they came back and did a few sessions on Grapevine after that.
Yeah.
But in terms of the other guys, like I guess it's just like listen to a lot of new music podcasts and listen to a lot of like Jim Gellert's new music show. It's a lot easier now with Spotify and stuff as well, because you can easily just spend like hours just scrolling through bands and new music in Scotland and seeing what folk are up to. Connor Fife is he's incredible as well. He kind of reminded me of like a sort of young Lewis Capaldi when the first time he came up the radio. He also had that sort of confidence where it's just like nothing's going to get in the way. Like he knew he wanted to get involved in music. He was writing his own material. Yeah. So Connor's doing really well, yeah. So youngest act to ever sell out King Tut's, I believe, in one of the many events that's been rescheduled.
Yeah.
So
I just remember the first time I seen him. Your bull gig you had. One of your bull. It was the bull gig a couple of years ago.
Yes, we had him in supporting. Who did we have him in supporting? Nick Mercer, was it? Nick Mercer? No, I can't remember.
No, it wasn't Nick Mercer. I think you had.
That was the year before.
I can't remember the headline. I remember Volker playing the Barrels. Well, it was just Mike and Joe played.
I can't remember who we had.
Because you had Sharpie at Whitburn a couple of days later.
Yeah. Yeah, I do remember that. That must have been 2018, but I can't remember for the life of me who headlined it. Maybe it was a local. I think maybe it was. I can't remember if it was maybe like Fake Lips or something. I think they played that night. Whether they headlined or not, I can't remember. But the bull gigs are great. We do them every Christmas. We had 1 year off. We didn't do one in 2019 because I couldn't get any bands because there was so much going on the rest of the days after Christmas. Like DSS were doing 2 nights at Tuts. Sharpie was doing St Luke's. Luke was playing Whitburn with like a load of other West Lothian acts. So I just couldn't do it in 2019. There was no bands. We had one booked. We had Connor booked a headline at the Bull actually in Boxing Day just there, which we didn't even announce because we kind of thought might not happen, might happen. So that didn't happen. But look, we're looking at when talks with his agent. He will come back and play West Lothian at some point. I don't even want to say this year because it might not happen this year, depending on the pandemic. But we will definitely. There's something we're looking at doing something, so we'll get Connor back in there. So yeah, Connor's excellent. Robin Ashcroft, that Connor and Robin used to have a duo called the Viral Trainways. The two of them have gone their own separate ways. But Robin's excellent as well. Her debut single's due for release in the next couple of weeks. Well worth checking out. I got a kind of preview of it the other week there. And I don't want to give too much away, but it's totally not what you'd expect. I'd be expecting something really kind of mellow. A lot of the stuff that she has done until now has been quite mellow. It's totally not like that. It's incredible. It's really good. It's worth checking out. When I think it's released maybe next week.
Yeah. And also, you end up managing like DSS and that. how does all this come about? I mean, I know you're mates with Burnsy.
Me being mates with him, actually, that kind of spiraled from working with the band, to be honest. So yeah, I must have seen DSS, I think, for the first time. Probably the start of 2008 at Harley's. So seen DSS, and then I was just like, these guys are class, like party band, like they will get the crowd going. So I started booking them for shows. We had them in Edinburgh a couple of times and back in West Lothian. And then I was just putting the band on that often that we ended up just Gary was like, oh, do you want to kind of work with the band and start managing us? And I was like, yeah, it sounds good. So it was good to be involved in the band I'm still involved now. But until they kind of called it a day in 2013, so it was probably about 4 years. So there was some exciting kind of touring during that time. We released the album with a sold out show at the Liquid Rooms as well, which was cool. Played a ton of festivals, and yeah, it was pretty exciting times. We had like the garden party residency nights at Harley's. We did some shows at Rat where we kind of joke because the View were on before DSS. So it's kind of like the View were warming up for DSS, like the View were supporting DSS. We want to play after a certain time, so the View had to be off stage by midnight or whatever, and then DSS were on after, and it was just as busy for DSS as it was for the View.
Yeah,
but
so sort of in the future, what were you looking to take, like Sharpie, Luke, and that? Because I think I have some of Luke's like managed by Guy for the Killers or something.
So yeah, I've been managing Mark in the band now for 2017, I think. Well, since they've been Mark Sharp, the Bicycle Thieves. So Mark had kind of approached me. Mark approached me summer 2017, and he was like, "Listen, I'm wanting to get a band on the go. Do you fancy kind of helping out?" DSS weren't a thing at the time, and I wasn't doing any management. I'm still doing gigs, but I wasn't doing management, and I was really buzzing about the kind of stuff, the demos that he was pulling together and the live shows that he was doing. So I was like, "Yeah, definitely count me in." So I was involved in the Bicycle Thieves kind of from day one, which was exciting because it's good to be part of the kind of project. The stuff that the guys are doing now is incredible, but even back then when we did like the first headline show we did as the Bicycle Thieves was a Hug and Pint, so it's only 100 cap in Glasgow, and it was just like it was class. In terms of Luke, yeah, I was kind of helping Luke out for a bit, just to get things in order. Like the guys didn't have really Instagram or Twitter, and they were lacking a bit of online presence and such like. So yeah, I jumped on to help the guys for a while, and they get picked up just last summer by, so it's Gordon Duncan. He does PR for loads of acts, Lewis being probably the main sort of Scottish acts, but also like Amy McDonald, a lot of I think it's ABP PR. So there's a lot of bands like from across the world. I think like Justin Bieber and stuff like does his UK PR. So there's a lot. He's very well connected in the industry, and I think it's really exciting kind of partnership for Luke to kind of take him and the band forward. And you obviously can see it from the amount of press that he's getting from the festival slots, and released a track last year as well, which was released the EP, which was the like Terribly Beautiful, and that was incredible as well, the one with Kyle Faulkner. So I think
Dead Man?
good. Dead Man's Blues as well, yeah.
Dead Man's Blues.
But yeah, I mean, he's going to go far. I'm gutted because none of the bookies will take bets from me on him doing a Bond theme, and I just think he's got that voice. Like he's going to do it for years to come. I want decent odds on it while he's not that big, but nobody will take odds. But yeah, no, he's going. I mean, both of them are going in the right direction. I think both of them are going to be pretty big in years to come. We've just had the first kind of listen of the mastered tracks that were Mark and the band have been recording some new stuff and had the first listen to the new tracks, and they're the best yet. Like they're absolutely going to be huge. So excited to get them released this summer as well.
Brilliant, because they've got the headline show at the Mash House with Billy Mitchell and Ocean Velvet, haven't they?
Yes, start of April. So I have to say we'll probably be making a decision on that in the next 2 to 3 weeks. That might need to. It's just at that sort of level at the moment where it's probably going to need to get moved. I think any shows in April and May are probably going to fall victim to the social distancing kind of rules, unfortunately.
It's going to be a killer for, a certain band for through. This way, we've got 3 nights at the Barras sold out.
I know, and it's so frustrating because I've got tickets actually to see them on the Thursday night, and that's going to be a huge show as well. It's going to be one of those like gigs that we spoke about, just like mayhem. And it got announced, I think, in November, just when things were looking up and there was the vaccine being announced, and people really thought that normality would be back certainly in March or April, and there was a host of gigs get announced then, and it's just not looking likely, unfortunately. But needless to say, it won't get cancelled, it'll just get moved, and then when it does happen, it'll be worth the wait.
Because I've got tickets for, I think it's the Tuesday and the Friday.
Oh, you going twice?
Yeah, because I've only seen them once as a support band, and that's when I met you in Perth.
Oh God, yeah, when they supported the View, of course. That was it'd be the other way around now.
I know. It's going to be. I mean, they're going to be huge.
They're pretty much there, yeah. I mean, 3 nights at the Barras is just incredible for a kind of new band. So yeah, they're doing really well.
Yeah. How does it feel to just be part of all these people's journeys and not just you've been a part of all of it. Jerry, Lewis, and that.
I'm just absolutely buzzing for the bands, to be honest. Like, it's great. It's great to, and do you know what? It's really handy in terms of booking bands for future gig in the Goyles, because when one of the first things that an agent will come back and say to you is, right, okay, who have you had? Like, who's played this festival in the past? So if you can rhyme off some bigger acts that have played the festival, then it usually goes in your favour, and it gives you the chance to book some of these acts. But no, like, all of these bands are amazing, and not only incredibly talented musically, but amazing like to work with. And yeah, it's great to see them kind of rise to the next level, and I'm sure that they'll just continue to get bigger, and then when they get bigger, there'll be the next run of bands below them that will come through. Your likes of Dictator, and you've got Dictator, Black Dog Days, Sylvie, Fraser McLean, all that kind of stuff. You've got a huge Megan Black as well. You've got a huge kind of run of bands below them that are probably just not quite at that level yet, but the material that they're bringing out is amazing, and they're certainly ones to watch as well. And you've still got DSS on the scene, and I think when they can finally get back to gigging again after COVID and release new material, then I think we'll be seeing a lot more of them in the coming sort of months as well.
Yeah, I was just about to ask that. Do you think DSS new material, maybe a follow-up EP to the album?
It's on the cards. It's on the cards. Yeah, I don't want to say too much because I'm not sure what dates we're working towards at the moment. But yeah, I would say it's definitely one to watch out for on the DSS kind of socials. Again, it's just because of the pandemic. The guys have got their own studio now, which makes it a lot easier, not just to rehearse, but also to get in and to record tracks. But unfortunately, it's just not viable just now. But yeah, fingers crossed we can do this Dreadnought show in August, get some new material out around then, and then look to the shows after that as well. Like, the band haven't played Edinburgh now since autumn 2013, so there might be room for an Edinburgh show maybe next year. Yeah, the last Edinburgh show was Electric Circus, RIP. That was a great venue, and they did that in November 2013. That was a great venue. It's a shame that went.
I've seen the Sherlocks.
Yes.
I've seen them in there, and I don't know how the place was still standing after it. They were amazing.
That would have been good.
So, with COVID, what's the future plans, Ross? What's the ideal plan for everything going forward with, the festival, the bands, and that?
It's tricky. My plans at the moment are doing a lot of cooking. What's the almost the highlight of my day at the moment is what I'm having for dinner. Not that I want to sound like a greedy bastard or anything, but yeah, it's certainly what am I having for dinner. No, see, in terms of music sense, it's just, I guess, a great proportion of this year is just going to be embracing sort of virtual gigs again. So we've not made a final decision on this year's gig in the Goyle, but we're meant to be going ahead at the start of May. I think, everybody knows that the start of May is looking extremely unlikely in terms of social distancing. Yeah. We can't do a physically distanced full-scale gig in the Goyle. So if we can't do that, then what we'll do is we will keep the bands, we'll move it to next year, and then we'll look at potentially doing, we won't have a year off, we'll definitely do a sort of hybrid event, or maybe a mini event with fans later in the year, if that's allowed, or a virtual event. So there will be a gig in the Goyle of sorts this year, which will be fun. But unfortunately, if we can't do the main event, then we'll do that. In terms of the other band stuff, just continuing to roll out new releases from Sharpie and the guys, which I'm sure will be revealed in coming months. That'll be exciting. And just looking at live shows again. Live shows are a little bit tricky at the moment because we don't actually know when we're working towards. We've got this tour, as I say, at the start of April, but I mean that's very soon. So it is probably likely that we're going to have to move that. But as I say, it won't be cancelled. It'll just be moved, and tickets will still be valid. We've got Live in Livy as well. Not entirely sure what we're going to do with that yet. We did have a date booked at Howden Park Centre at the end of June, which is probably because it's still going to be too soon to do anything. So if we need to go virtual with that again, we'll go virtual with that again. Adrian, and it was amazing. I think we were the first sort of festival to do a fully sort of live virtual stream last year. There was a lot of festivals doing virtuals, but we kind of opened it up new avenues. It's not to say that other festivals wouldn't have done that anyway, but we kind of jumped on it as soon as lockdown came out. We booked a venue, we ensured that we had safe social distancing practices and safe COVID guidelines, and we had bands playing across the day as if they would with fans in the venue, but just with no fans in the venue. So if we need to do that again, I think we will do it again. Adrian and the team at Trash Panda are brilliant, and Scott Kempick as well, who does all the video side of things. Like these guys are extremely talented in what they do and pulling together the sort of whole like live stream. So I just book the bands and make sure that everything runs to time from a musician's perspective. But they pull together something incredible for that. And I think we'll probably put on some sort of Live in Livy as well this year again. But again, it's just a case of holding out and seeing what we can and can't do as per government regulations at the time.
Yeah. Moving on to your other passion, Ross, Livingston.
Got Livy mug tonight. I'm on the where's the camera? There it is. Got the coffee out in the Livy mug tonight.
I mean, it's been a roller coaster for you the last sort of 4 or 5 years. Being relegated and just progressing right up, and you've been there a lot of it. What's it been like? As from other fans' point of view, I'm a Hibs fan, so looking at it, I'm just like, on you just go, keep going.
I mean, I tell you what, it's not boring. It's definitely not boring supporting Livingston, and I think that's one of the exciting things. I think I would struggle to support a team that wins something all the time, and almost like being a Celtic fan. Like I think when you're winning something all the time, that expectation is there. They won the Scottish Cup last season, the Scottish Cup last month, and it didn't. Well, I guess the fans will maybe correct me if I'm wrong. I assume it didn't feel all that special. Whereas because Livy have been down in League One, we've come back up to the Championship. We had the second lowest budget, I think, in the Championship when we were there. We still managed to get promoted. We came up to the Premiership where we've got a budget on par with only Hamilton. And we've managed to secure a top 6 finish last season. We're sitting in the top 6 at the moment this season, and we're in our first National Cup final for 17 years. So it's been great. It's been ups and downs, but I wouldn't have it any other way. It's brilliant, and it's really kept me going during this lockdown as well. It gives me something to look forward to on a Saturday afternoon, watching a full form Livy team turning over everyone in their path at the moment by the looks of things.
Including Marlock by the looks of things. I think he's.
Well, I tell you what, I didn't particularly fancy you guys if we got you in the cup final, because I think that you'd have been after sort of revenge from 2004. But St Johnstone won't be easy either. But if we can win that cup final, that's huge. That's absolutely massive for the team.
Yeah, 100%. What's been your best memories being a Livy fan? You know, it's been an absolute roller coaster.
Standing 2004 was definitely a highlight, but I think I was just slightly too young to appreciate it at the time. So I would have only been, I think, 13 when we won the cup, so couldn't go to the pubs beforehand. I actually had the fucking flu. Had the flu when the cup final came, and my mum was like, I don't think, maybe you shouldn't go to the game. Like, you've been in bed ill all week. And I was like, I am not missing the cup final. So I went to the cup final and then just went back to bed after it. But no, it was a great day. It was an amazing day. Yeah. Winning the Petrofat was good. Winning the lower leagues. I mean, winning the lower leagues are fun as well because it's a good day out with your mates. And we cracked open the Prosecco outside Hammondvale when we won League One. We thought that was a high one.
Yeah, I remember.
As far as we've won League One, we've won a league. This is probably the last time we'll be celebrating for a number of years, and we were wrong. But the playoff win, definitely the playoff win. That was just such a buzz. The West Stand was completely full for those home games. Dundee United away was incredible. The late goal from Scott Pittman was just carnage. Absolute bodies everywhere. And beating Partick in the playoff final to come up was special. But it's a shame that the final will be closed doors. But if they win that, then again that will be another amazing memory of supporting the team. Yeah,
and I went to primary school with Pitts and done my first year with him, and seeing him going from there was always something special about him.
What an absolute legend! He just puts in 110%, and I think it's shown in the fact that Martindale will often rest players. If we're playing 2 or 3 times a week, he'll rest probably 80 or 90% of the squad. Pitt still plays 90 minutes every game. It rarely even comes off. He'll just play 90 minutes, give it his all, and he'll be back in the starting 11 a few days later. And it's just incredible. He's played over 250 games now for the team, and he's on still a 3-year deal. So I think he'll get his testimonial, and it'll be well deserved.
No, it'll be class to see. Just him being the local lad, and this is a bit of a far fetch, but he reminds me of Paul Scholes. Not on the field, but see off the field. No bollard for the rest of that. It's just right, cool. Shut the door, chuck my trackies on. I'm over him.
Quiet guy. It's not even on social media or anything. Just that, quiet guy. He's just doing his job. Obviously, doing it really well. I saw an interview. I think it was an interview with David Martindale recently, where he said that we couldn't tell him he's a Livy legend because otherwise he'd put on a fake moustache and beard so he's not spotted around West Lothian because he doesn't want to be known as that, which I just think is amazing.
No, it's just the fairy tale would be used winning the cup and him, either scoring or assisting in that final. I
think. Well, I mean, he's already. I would say that probably the greatest signing that we've ever made in the terms of that we got him on a free from Boness and on relatively low wages compared to some of the big signings that we've made over the years, like Fernandez and your sort of Quino and your Stuart Lovells, your big players that we've had over the years, because that expectation wasn't there with him. I think, and certainly, if we do qualify for Europe this year and win the cup, and even if we don't, I think it's kind of hard to look past him being potentially our greatest ever player.
Yeah, you've looked for the last question on Livy, who's probably your best ever player.
David Fernandez, until recently, it's been David Fernandez. What he achieved for the club, it helped us get into Europe. He was a huge part of that cup winning squad, and just the talent on the field as well. He's probably the most skillful player I've seen for the club. Amazing, Fernandez is just incredible. But I think in terms of I think Pitts is just kind of overtaken him now. They're both being the best Livy 11, but I think for what Pitts has done for the club in terms of the rise through the leagues. Won the Challenge Cup with us, the League One, Championship playoffs, and if we were to win the cup or even get into Europe this season, I think that would just top it off.
No, 100%. I think I've covered everything I could probably cover, Ross. Maybe apart from, going away with the Parton Army and, doing all that. What's probably your favourite football memory? If you want to have a football memory.
Favourite football memory? Do you know, this isn't even a hard one. This isn't a hard one. It was my first Scotland away trip was when we were over in France, me and you, and for my 18th birthday, which shows you how long ago this was. We got the Eurotunnel over to Paris, and then we stayed in Paris a few days and went to Scotland, France. Tickets in the French end, and McFadden scored that goal, and I was on the stairs because we didn't. The way that the seats worked, it was everyone was piled into the same stand, and there was a lack of seating, and I fell down countless stairs, and it was just an absolute mayhem when McFadden scored that goal. So I think that would be my favourite football memory.
And probably a favourite gig memory.
Favourite gig memory? Runrig's last gig. Yeah, again, one of the bands that I grew up listening to. Probably my favourite bands of all time. And seeing their farewell gig at Stirling Castle a few years ago was just incredible. So it was a 3-hour long set, which is some effort because the guys are in their late 60s. So 3-hour set, 2 nights in a row. I went just the one night. I went on this Saturday night, but it was just incredible. It was such a good gig. The last dance, and right the way to the kind of fireworks at the finale and the kind of a cappella sing along of Hearts of Old and Glory at the end of the gig. It was amazing.
Yeah, because all the boys were there as well. Right.
Yeah, there was loads of us. Yeah, so I think there was only a few of us camped over the weekend. Some of the other guys just came up and joined us on the Saturday. They didn't fancy camping in a muddy Stirlingshire field for the weekend, but you've got to do it right. You've got to camp for the weekend and just make the most of it.
Right, that's been brilliant, Ross. Thanks very much.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for having us on. All the best, and fingers crossed we're out this lockdown soon and we can grab a pint.
Well, here I still owe you a pint for last year.
Right, okay. You got a good memory because you didn't remember that.
No, I'd said to Paul last time I seen him, I was like, Ken, I'm still due puts a pint for that charity night. He went, how do you remember that? I was like, because I was at the bar and you were away at the bar and you wanted a pint. I went, aye. I was like, I'll get you one back. And my other mate was at the bar and he came back and I was just like, I'm a greedy bastard here.
I don't remember that. I remember that night though. That was a really good night, and obviously promoting mental health, which is massive as well. So that was a great wee gig, and it's good to see gigs in Craigshill where I could walk from my parents' house just up to the gig. That rarely happens these days. So so that was cool.
Right. Again, thanks again for coming on, Ross.
Brilliant. Cheers, mate. Catch you later.
Thanks, mate.
Bye.